Support for NPR comes from Google Cloud Platform. With Google Cloud Platform, use machine learning at scale to build better products. It predicts so your business can thrive. To learn more, visit cloud.google.com.
Quick warning, there is some bad language in this show.
Sally, you know that I'm from a very small town in upstate New York.
Kerhonkson,
yeah, I talk about it a lot.
Yes.
And so I have told you that Kerhonkson, as small towns go, is not an economic powerhouse. Kerhonkson is a little rundown. The biggest private employer there is this old hotel called the Hudson Valley Resort and Spa. It's 8 stories high. It's like the tallest thing for miles.
You showed me pictures. It's like this white, boxy tower rising up in these blue mountains.
Yeah, it is a beautiful area of the country. But as for the hotel, I worked there when I was a kid, and the hotel was not in great shape. The roof leaked, and so it smelled moldy, and the carpet was this red-orange, like straight out of The Shining type carpet, and I just remember it always being kind of empty. No one really stayed there. But then 2 years ago, I found out that someone bought the hotel. They paid about $13 million, and I was like, why? It had filed for bankruptcy just a couple of years before. Who would want this place? So the other day, I went to Kerhonkson to try to find out what was going on. I drove down to the town hall to the one guy who, by the rules of small towns, should know everyone and everything. That is the town supervisor, Carl Chipman.
I've lived here just about my whole life. I'm 57 years old. I started school here. So.
Did you go to Rondout?
Yes, I did.
Hey, go Ganders.
Graduated class of 78. So.
Class of 99, give me 5.
Okay.
Carl's office is very low-key. It's a little brick building with a park outside. And as soon as I tell him I have some questions about the hotel, he says, I have got a story for you. 2 summers ago, he says, a group of guys walk into my office.
They were all wearing suits, and I'm sitting here with my blue jeans on. So when I talk about the hayseed hillbilly here up against the A-team,
The men introduce themselves. They are a real estate agent, an engineer, an architect, and a lawyer.
I'd say he was probably around 60 years old, very dignified, balding. I like bald guys like myself, He had a 3-piece suit, and at the time it was in the summer, and the suit was kind of a beigey color.
The lawyer says he represents a company that wants to buy the hotel, and they want Carl's permission to build a heliport on the property.
A heliport?
Yes, so helicopters can land at the hotel.
Okay.
So Carl says, all right, guys, which company do you represent exactly? And the lawyer clams up.
They wouldn't give me any information at all who the buyer was, which I thought was kind of crazy. Who does this?
Well, how many times did you ask him? I mean, did you say, guys, can you tell me off the record?
Yeah, I kept pricking him. I did it several times, but still, they told me they were sworn to keep him anonymous.
Eventually, the lawyer finally says, my client is a big multinational company. But that's all they'll tell him.
So mysterious.
Right? And so I went to spend the night in the Hudson Valley Resort. Okay, here we go. Going inside. There's the cafe that I used to work in. Oh, my God. Hi. Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Hudson Valley Resort and Spa.
I am checking in. Last name is King. All right, so a big multinational company, right? I wanted to find out if they had made any changes, like spruced the place up. Is the restaurant open anymore?
No, it is not.
Is the golf course still running?
No, it is not.
And then the woman at the front desk starts shaking her head and backing away from me. You don't want to be recorded. So I head to my room. Elevator's on the right. And down at the other end of the hallway, I hear someone yelling. Someone is cussing really loudly. I'm just going to go see what's going on. Is everything okay?
No, the key won't work again.
The key won't work again.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? What do you think of the hotel?
Hotel's a piece of crap. Worst hotel in the circuit.
Can you tell me why?
The hotel probably hasn't been updated since the 1950s when Patrick Swayze's mom performed on that stage over there.
Patrick Swayze's mom performed here?
Yeah, on the stage.
Louis St. George is a DJ, and he's at the hotel working a weekend line dancing event. Did you know that the hotel got bought 2 years ago?
Yes.
Do you know who bought it?
some Asian company called the Dragons. If you go through the whole books, it's Yakuza.
You said Yakuza. Those are Japanese games.
Yes.
No, what books? What's going on?
No, the hotel was not bought by Japanese gangs.
No, it was not. It was bought by one of the biggest companies anywhere. It is called the H&A Group, and it is unusual.
Hello and welcome to Planet Money. I'm Noelle King.
And I'm Sally Helm. Today on the show, a story about the big money sloshing around the world and how it washes up in this tiny town. And who is controlling the faucet 7,000 miles away.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from State Farm, who knows that many Americans struggle with their finances and most have never been taught how to manage them. Starting today, State Farm wants to change that by giving people the tools, help, and education they need to take control of their money, putting financial well-being within the reach of everyone. You can find out more at letstarttoday.com. State Farm, here to help life go right.
A couple weeks after those men in suits came to town, Carl Chipman, the town supervisor, is having his morning coffee and reading the paper, and he reads a story about this company that bought the hotel, the H&A Group.
I looked it up online and I saw these people were involved in so many different things all over the world. And I'm saying, here they are in Kerhonkson. Actually, I said, SOB, what's going on here?
Yes, pretty much my question too. What is going on here?
And Noelle, you and I cannot resist a good mystery.
Nope.
So we started looking into the H&A Group, and we Googled it, same as Carl. When you go to H&A's website, it is a little hard at first to tell what business they're in.
Experience and enjoy life. We are here to help you fulfill your dreams. We are H&A. We keep innovating, and we share love selflessly with the world. H&A Group, sharing dreams.
H&A is sharing love selflessly in a lot of places. This is a big company. It started small. It began as a tiny airline in 1993 in Hainan Province, China. That's like China's Hawaii, beautiful island, lots of tourists. And now H&A owns hundreds of planes and tons of other businesses. Hotels, tourism companies, logistics firms.
H&A is one of the 200 biggest companies in the world with annual revenue of over $50 billion, according to Fortune magazine. And all of this makes me even more curious. Why did such a savvy, important company buy up this rundown hotel?
So we called up someone who, like us, has developed kind of an obsession with H&A.
Serious question for you. Is all of this as crazy as it sounds?
Yes, it's all as crazy as it sounds.
Derek Scissors is an expert in U.S.-China economic relations with the American Enterprise Institute. That's a right-leaning think tank in D.C. He got interested in China in the early 90s.
Derek was doing his doctorate in economics, and China was restarting economic reforms. It was trying to move away from communism and toward a market economy. So Derek goes traveling around China on the train.
So they'd see the white guy, and they'd say, "What are you doing here?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm an economist, and I'm traveling to learn about what's going on in southern China." And every single time I said that on the train, I got a crowd. People would start talking, other people would come into the compartment, or they'd pull me out of the compartment and want to ask questions.
God, so you as an economist, you were drawing a crowd. You were like a rock star.
Yeah, a small stadium rock star, but...
Derek becomes a China expert, and he creates this thing called the China Global Investment Tracker, which tracks Chinese investments.
Of $100 million or more.
Oh, so you look at where big Chinese money is going.
That's right.
Now, at the time that Derek starts working on the tracker, China is encouraging Chinese businesses to take their money and invest it overseas, diversify. China had a policy called the Go Out policy, and the government was helping these companies. China has state-owned banks, and they were giving very large and very cheap lines of credit to these companies.
But still, most investments are not $100 million, not big enough for Derek's tracker.
There were very few investments, and I could remember them all.
There's an uptick in 2014, partly because the Chinese government eases some restrictions on big investments, makes it even easier for companies to invest money overseas. One of those companies is H&A, which is showing up on Derek's tracker. Not huge buys, but a pretty steady stream. And then, in August 2015, there's this shockwave that goes through China's economy.
the head of the People's Bank of China, that's China's central bank, makes an announcement. It's about the yuan, China's currency.
He says China wants the yuan to be more flexible.
Direct quote, right? Flexible.
Flexible. Up until then, China had been controlling its currency pretty tightly. So here's how things had been working.
The Chinese yuan is pegged very tightly to the US dollar, so if the dollar moves, the yuan just copies the dollar movement. The dollar goes up, the yuan goes up. The dollar goes down, the yuan goes down.
The head of the People's Bank says, we don't want it to work like that anymore.
Why does he say that?
Well, for one, China has some goals for the yuan. It wants the yuan to be in a tiny group of currencies that are designated as elite by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. So these are the big boys, like the dollar or the euro or the yen. If the yuan is just copying the dollar, pegged to the dollar, the IMF is not going to treat it like a major currency.
And there's something else going on, too. The economy in China is slowing down at this point, and unpinning from the dollar at this moment, that's going to make the yuan cheaper. It'll devalue it. Great for China, because a cheaper yuan means China can sell more stuff, which will help with growth. But
if you're holding yuan, you're thinking, I don't like this. This asset's going to be worth less. It's going to have less buying power. Let me get out of it. I want to send my money overseas.
And then does the investment tracker start seeing a lot of activity, a lot of money leaving China?
Well, yes.
It goes nuts. Chinese companies start buying up properties and companies all over the world because they think that soon the yuan will buy less, so they want to buy now while it's still strong.
One Chinese company in particular catches Derek's eye, and that is the HNA Group.
HNA has something like a growth steroid.
A couple weeks after the announcement, HNA starts out on a buying spree. They end up spending billions of dollars in just about a year buying stakes in some companies, buying other companies outright. And we're talking about big companies. HNA buys a $6.5 billion stake in Hilton Hotels. They buy all of the Radisson hotels. They buy a multi-billion-dollar stake in Deutsche Bank. They drop $6 billion on an American tech company.
These are big buys. But remember, Noelle, what we are here for is a mystery about a small one.
Can I tell you what else happened in the summer of 2015?
This seems like an open question. Lots of things happened. Tell me.
Okay, what's interesting to me is right after that announcement was made, HNA came to upstate New York, and they spent on the order of $13 million for a decrepit hotel. So does that seem to you like Chinese money trying to get out of the country into any asset it possibly can?
Absolutely.
All right, so there's our answer. Derek thinks this is why HNA bought the hotel. They were buying everything they could, getting money out of China, and investing some of it here in the U.S., which is good.
Yeah, investment is investment. So we know why they bought it. The question is, why haven't they done anything with it? I was up there, and the place is still pretty run down, still smells a little moldy, the red-orange shining carpet is still there. Why haven't they put any money into the place?
We've got some theories after this.
Support for this NPR podcast and the following message come from Capital, whose app mixes technology and behavioral economics to change how people bank. With automated, goal-based savings and checking, users have saved more than $250 million. Find Capital with a Q in the App Store.
The question is, why buy this beat-up old hotel and then not make it better? I mean, HNA has billions of dollars.
Okay, well, something else has been going on in China that has made it harder for HNA to spend money overseas, to spend it in places like Kerhonkson. What happened is that China realized just how much money was leaving the country.
Yeah, HNA is not the only company that's been taking billions of dollars out of China.
No.
One Chinese company bought up AMC Theaters and bought a $3.5 billion stake in the movie studio that produced Godzilla and that Matt Damon movie, The Great Wall.
Another Chinese company bought the Waldorf Astoria here in New York for almost $2 billion. Different company paid more than $1 billion for Club Med, got a stake in Cirque du Soleil. And we know that the government was worried because then, in July of this year, just a few months ago, the Communist Party's official newspaper published a front-page op-ed, very unusual, warning about gray rhinos.
What's a gray rhino?
A gray rhino is a problem on the horizon that you see, but you don't acknowledge it until it is trampling you. And the op-ed said, China's got to watch out for gray rhinos in our economy, like companies taking on too much debt, making foolish purchases.
And not long after that op-ed, China started to squeeze these companies. Here's Derek Scissors.
They didn't shout from the rooftops, "We are imposing very strict capital controls."
This is like HMA getting a smack on the head and being told, guys, you're done.
That's right.
And not just HNA, lots of companies. China's always had capital controls, and it sort of tightens and loosens the flow of money whenever it's having feelings.
And China does seem to be having some feelings.
Sure does.
This summer, Chinese police detained the head of the company that bought the Waldorf Astoria. The company that bought AMC Theaters had to publicly deny that their chairman was in custody. They started selling off assets.
And this is where you see so clearly the confusion over what kind of economy China wants. These companies are its biggest capitalist success stories. The government supported them, and now it wants to rein them in. So where does all this leave HNA, the little airline that became a giant?
Well, a couple weeks back, HNA makes a weird move. This man comes forward out of the blue, and he says, "I'm HNA's largest shareholder, and I'm transferring my shares, which is a third of this company, into a charitable foundation in New York City."
Could you imagine Delta Airlines, right? HNA started out as an airline saying, "Hey, we were this airline that charged people as much money as we could, but you know what we're going to do instead? We're going to turn ourselves into the United Way." That's the equivalent to what HNA said.
There is no concrete explanation for what they're doing, but this move did highlight some things about HNA, including the fact that nobody really knows or understands who owns this company, which rings some real alarm bells. Some banks are refusing to lend to HNA now. And look, this company is massive, and they're investing a lot of money in the United States, and no one really knows what they're up to.
I mean, they know what they're up to. But we tried.
We tried
we
for months.
really tried for months to talk to these guys.
This week, HNA seemed like they had agreed to an interview.
But then they backed off and said maybe a statement on tape.
And then they backed off of that and changed it to just an email.
Everyone is very busy, we're told.
Yes, so we did email. We emailed about capital controls and the odd move with the charity. But right up at the top, our main questions were, where did you hear about Kerhonk's in New York, and why did you buy this hotel? HNA got back to us. They did not answer any of the other questions, but they did say some things about the hotel.
Okay, I'll read it. HNA Group views the Hudson Valley Resort as a very desirable destination for leisure travel and business conferences. We're proud to be an employer in the Kerhonkson community and grateful to operate in a local economy flush with skilled hospitality professionals.
That's my hometown.
Okay.
Not bad, huh?
Yeah, very desirable destination for leisure travel?
Come on.
I mean, I am not trying to knock your hometown.
But can I say something here? HNA is a multi-billion-dollar company, which we have to assume means they're pretty smart about travel and tourism. And they've made some good plays over the past couple of years, some really big plays.
Yeah, so maybe they just haven't had time to focus on this one. You know, they sort of vacuumed it up along with all the other big stuff and forgot about it. Preserved it. Actually, maybe that's what's keeping it going.
Bingo. And you know, the night that I stayed there, it eventually did get kind of packed. You remember Louis from the start of the show?
Yeah, line dancing Louis.
Yes.
Line dancing, cussing Louis.
Yes. Yes, line dancing Louis. So that night, Louis invited me down to the lobby. And you know, we're in the middle of the mountains, and there is nothing to do outside. But inside the hotel, the atmosphere was so dope. There were these two young guys sitting at the piano playing a Journey song. And it made me think about everything that this little hotel has been through. You know, somebody gets a bad feeling in Beijing, and the Hudson Valley Resort doesn't get a new carpet. It's at the very end of this long chain of decisions about currency and the aspirations of the Chinese government. And it seems like maybe HNA has just forgotten it. And in the meantime, it's a lot of fun. I mean, that night, no, they never opened the restaurant, but someone had brought in a bottle of wine and paper cups, and so we're all sitting around laughing and yakking, and then somebody starts blasting country music on the speakers. and somebody taught me how to do a line dance. I'm not a very good line dancer, is what I'm learning. And to be honest, Sally, I could not think of a nicer place to spend the night. We have a lot of people to thank for today's episode. First, to everyone in Kerhonkson, New York, especially the town's biggest booster, Chris Depew, to Rob Schmitz, NPR's Shanghai correspondent and author of the book Street of Eternal Happiness, to William Kirby, a professor at Harvard Business School, Nicholas Lardy of the Peterson Institute for International Economics, Michelle Wooker, who coined the term gray rhino and wrote a book about it called The Gray Rhino, and Andrew Collier, author of Shadow Banking and the Rise of Capitalism in China.
Thanks also to Elizabeth Kulas, who produced today's show. Brian Erstadt edits Planet Money, and Alex Goldmark is our supervising producer. I'm Sally Helm.
And I'm Noelle King. Thanks for listening.